So we are at the end of the first week of prep for Daytona. It's Sunday the 12th of January. This time in 1 week, the 24 hours of Daytona will be finished. So if you have a look at your week overall then, what do you know now that you didn't know this time last week?
There's a few things. One, people are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And while you might have, I think we've talked about this too. You might have all the control in the world over your car and your setup and how well the car can handle and all that stuff. Having a car back into the middle of the track because they want to get back on track as fast as possible will end your day
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
And
Yeah, that's what
the Daytona infield is particularly narrow and tight as well.
Yeah.
And I've found this week when I've been racing that the first couple of laps are, well, let's put it bluntly, it's been a bloodbath. It's been a war zone, because there really is no margin for error. And in a sport such as this, where the margins are so tight, you're going to get people making these sorts of moves and looking for these sorts of opportunities, and that does tend to cause these sorts of collisions to occur, and especially when you're speaking about a race series such as the SimiCube GT3 Sprint Series that runs every 2 hours. If someone crashes out, there's always another race. And I think that tends to lead itself to people taking more risks when they shouldn't necessarily be doing that. I mean, at the end of the day, we are talking about a video game. Let's not be around the bush here. It's a video game. Yes, it's a simulation. Yes, it's something that we pay an annual subscription for. Yes, it's something that we want to do the best we can at. But it's still a video game, and people are going to take risks that they wouldn't do in real life. And that there's always another race mentality does lead itself to there being more risky maneuvers being made, shall we say,
Yeah.
than there would otherwise be.
We see that a lot too, because there's the four start times for the endurance races, the special events, where those first two special events, people are nuts in the beginning.
Yes.
And because they can risk it all, and if they have a bad start or they qualify bad, they just leave the session.
Yeah.
And we saw that actually in my first big one, which was Spa, the one that we won. There was a ton of people that qualified poorly and then just tried to drive through the field and just absolutely got nuked and nuked a bunch of people. And then so there was like 10 cars by the end of halfway through the race, and you're just like, all right, well, thanks for ruining what this was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because people, they see that there's another race. I'll just go to that if I screw up.
I think that the time slots I think that we're both looking at doing time slot 3, which is midday GMT. So for East Coast America, that's what, 7 a.m.
Yeah, 8.
Yeah, 7, 8 o'clock. Yeah. I mean, I've done the 7 a.m. GMT Daytona 24 time slot before. It was the very first one that I ever did. And yeah, the first lap was pretty chaotic, to be honest. It was also the first race when the GTPs came out. That was still when we just had the BMW and not the other three. Yeah. 4 now, I should say, with the Ferrari 499P. And that was pretty chaotic in the first kind of couple of hours as well before everything settled down. Time slot 3 does tend to be better, though. I've tended to find, not without its incidents, of course, but you're absolutely right that there are going to be people that will take a time slot and just throw caution to the wind, and if it doesn't work, they'll just go for the next one. We see it every single year. Okay, so as I kind of alluded to, this week has been a bit of a bloodbath as far as the races I've done go. So just for the context, I'm sitting in 3K strength of field splits, so generally second or third split depending upon the exact time of day that I'm going in. Not that I feel I should be in those splits. I feel I should be in lower splits than that, but that's a conversation for another day. Um, but there's been a lot of incidents. I think there has been a lot of opportunistic moves on the first few laps, which has led to a lot of collisions, an awful lot of retirements. Certainly, I don't feel like I've driven this week the best that I ever could. I think it's certainly at the moment that I feel that there's something missing from what I'm driving, and I'm not sure what it is. We all go through periods of good form and bad form. I think season four for me, 2024 for me was probably my best ever season. On iRacing, I was getting some very good positions. It was one of those seasons where I really felt like I couldn't do anything wrong. This season has felt like I can't really do anything right. I'm naturally quite a cautious driver. I don't consider myself to have much one lap pace relative to the splits that I'm in. Um, and very much I'm the sort of person that likes to try and survive the first 10 minutes or so of a 40-minute race and then kind of go from there. And I've done 9 races this week. We'll call them eight at Daytona because I've done an IMSA race at Hockenheim as well, just to keep the multi-class fresh. And I've had 4 meatballs, which for me, I usually don't get 4 meatballs in a season. I've had 4 in a week. So there's definitely something that I'm not saying that it's everyone else's fault, and I'm not saying it's all my fault. There's definitely a middle ground there,
Right.
that is overlapping. Um, but what I've generally found is once you've managed to get through the first opening few laps, the racing has been pretty good. It's been quick. It's been very, very quick.
Very.
Yeah, I mean the winners of the races I've been doing have generally been running low 1 minute 44s. I've even seen a couple of 143s in there towards the end of the race. So
Yep.
it's been lightning quick, and the pack is spread out. It's a draft train the whole way around the banking. Um, but overall, I felt that it is coming. It's coming along. We're using the Ford Mustang, the number 17 car, and I do feel that it's better on high fuel. I think it's better on longer race runs than it would be for a short 40-minute sprint race. The Corvette and the Porsche do seem to be the cars to pick this year, maybe along with the new Acura as well. So there's been some good bits, there's been some bad bits. And then last night, me and one of the other drivers in the 17 did the Global Endurance Conspit Tour race, which is 6 hours. That was around Daytona. Thank you to the iRacing staff for deciding to put a 6 hour race on the week before the Daytona
Eh,
24, because it was an absolutely perfect warm up for next week and to give us a chance to see how the setup is, see how we are in race trim. So we started eighth. Sorry, no, we started 10th. Opening couple of laps were fairly chaotic. There was a big pile up on the back stretch after about 6 or 7 laps, which gave us a couple of free positions there. I didn't start the race. I came in after the first stint, and I struggled for pace. As I said before, it's not been my best week so far, and this was a bit of an extension of that. I did find that I was probably losing half a second a lap to the other teams around us that we'd been fighting with. And now I don't, although I use some overlays from third parties which can show things like iRating, I actually don't run with any of those figures on because I find it wastes unnecessary energy thinking about what everyone else is doing. I like to just kind of focus on my own thing, and I was dropping tenths and seconds and half a second here and there. We went from sixth down to eighth, and I will admit I was kind of sulking in the car a little bit because I wasn't. I was kind of undoing all the work that the first driver had done for us. It later transpired that the 2 places that I'd lost were places to drivers that were quite higher rated than me. So actually hanging on for as long as I did was actually pretty good. So in hindsight, that first stint for me actually ended up going a lot better than it maybe felt like it was doing at the time. We switched around after that. After I did a double stint, the other driver went in for their double stint and managed to pick a couple of places back up. Had a good fight with what was then P7 while we were P8, and we managed to get through into P7. So then we were sitting there with about an hour and a half to go. I had basically a stint and about 3/4 left to do. If you think a full stint tank's about 55 minutes or so. Second lap out of the pits, coming to the bus stop chicane, and LMP2 comes up behind us, misjudges their speed by about 3 or 4 miles an hour, about 5 kilometers to 8 kilometers per hour, taps
Thank
us
you
in the
for
back.
using power.
Thank you, Imperial and metric for anyone that doesn't know the conversion. So about between 3 and 5 mile an hour, 5 to 8 kilometers an hour difference. Taps us in the back coming out of the bus stop chicane and puts us into the wall, the exit of the bus stop chicane into turn 12. One of those things that's very, very easy to misjudge. It was a very slight error of judgment, and put us into the wall. That is the brutal nature of iRacing. You wouldn't get that anywhere else. So a bit frustrating. Nothing we could have done about it. So managed to limp back to the pits. About a 2.5 minute repair job, put us down from 7th to 10th. Another car in front of us ended up getting some damage as well, so we were able to get that position back. And then coming out of the final stop, I was about 3.5 seconds ahead of position, what was then position 9. And over the last half an hour, I was able to hold them back, and we ended up finishing 8th. So overall, a pretty good race. We do feel that there's maybe still some pace that we need to try and get out of the Mustang. We feel, I think for the 24 hours, it's going to be a solid, reliable car. Not necessarily the quickest over one lap. I think the Porsche and the Corvette still have that. But the thing with 24-hour races is that they're so long, anything can happen. It only takes one very small mistake from either side, as we found out last night, for positions to change quite significantly. So I think overall, pretty positive after last night, but there's still definitely things to work on over the next week.